Here's Cunningham up ahead of the field, lays it in, plus the foul, and then Cunningham gets into the face of DiJonai. Excessive is flagrant too. That's excessive.
That's excessive.
By all precedent we have seen in this league, prior to that foul, you would have to believe it's going to be upgraded to a flagrant 2.
Sophie Cunningham was running toward the basket with a clear path to the rim. Then DiJonai Carrington came flying in from behind. The contact sent Cunningham crashing to the floor, and within seconds, the officials upgraded the foul to a flagrant 2 and ejected Carrington. But the ejection wasn't the moment this story exploded. Because moments later, Carrington went to social media and posted 2 words: white privilege. And suddenly, this wasn't just another controversial WNBA foul. It became a story about race, accountability, Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, the WNBA's culture, and the growing war over what this league is becoming. And then one of basketball's biggest names got pulled into the conversation: LeBron James. But here's the part you need to know before we go any further. Did LeBron actually react to this specific incident? Or did the internet simply connect his previous support for Caitlin Clark to a controversy involving her teammate? Because once you separate what was actually said from what people assumed was said, this story becomes much more complicated.
Here's Cunningham up ahead of the field, lays it in, plus the foul, and then Cunningham gets into the face of DiJonai Carrington right away in the aftermath. And Cunningham has to be separated as both teams will head to their benches.
You'll see a DiJonai Carrington as Sophie Cunningham comes down, gets her right across the face, coming down trying to prevent the layup, but that is just a hard hit. That's definitely going to be upgraded, I think, to a flagrant 2, Ryan.
I think that is going to be a flagrant 2.
Saturday, DiJonai Carrington bloodied Sophie Cunningham's mouth on a national television broadcast. Flagrant 2, ejected. Officials cited windup, impact, and follow-through. That is not a basketball play. That is a woman getting her mouth busted open while her head coach, surprisingly, starts building the case for the woman who did it. Sophie Cunningham wears an Indiana Fever jersey. So does Caitlin Clark. Stephanie White is their coach. And White did the same thing she did in July when Alyssa Thomas drove a fist into Caitlin Clark's throat. She walked to the podium and protected the aggressor, not her player. The aggressor. Take a listen.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a hard foul. I don't think that DiJonai intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did, but it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. But, you know, one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck.
The official's explanation is important. They pointed to the wind-up, the impact, the follow-through, and the fact that Cunningham was in a vulnerable position. That establishes why the foul became a flagrant 2. But it does not automatically establish intent. And that distinction becomes extremely important later. Because the internet immediately started arguing about something the replay cannot completely prove. What was Carrington actually trying to do?
It's one of those things where this is here. No, this has not happened. Like, people are like, oh, she's calling out the system of bias on similar fouls that white players weren't upgraded or met with the same consequence. What are we talking about? Name one white player who chased somebody down, took them out in the air, full whack by the head, busted their mouth. Yes, players white and black have missed blocks and hit people in the head. Angel Reese did it, Caitlin Clark did it. They called the correct call, flagrant 1. Because Angel Reese was clearly going for the block on Caitlin Clark. If you miss a block and hit somebody in the head, it's a flagrant 1. DiJonai, by the way, has done that to so many people. She's done it to Jess Shepard. She's done it to Skylar Diggins. She did it another time that I can't remember. I can't remember the person exactly last season. She's done it so many. She did it to Kate Martin. Like, these are all flagrant fouls because there's at least some deniability. The ball's already in the basket by the time this picture here was taken. The ball's already in the basket by the time. Like, she joined up two hands and it came down like that. She didn't even fully extend her arm. She went like that. Like, it could not be more obviously a flagrant 2. And even if it's not intentional, it's so egregiously mistimed that it's a flagrant 2. It is like, this is a sending off in rugby. You'd be saying it is the most egregiously mistimed. By this logic, if going for the ball is there, it means you're allowed to take. If this is a flagrant 1, it means you're literally allowed to take people out in the air. You're not allowed to do that. And it's so different. People come from the side. People come from the front. She went through the back, which is so much more dangerous. It is the most egregious flagrant 2. And people are comparing a Caitlin Clark play.
This is where the history matters. Because Carrington's name was already familiar to WNBA viewers before Sophie Cunningham went down. There had already been controversy involving Caitlin Clark. So when another Indiana Fever player became involved in another physical incident involving Carrington, people didn't watch it in isolation. They remembered the previous footage. They remembered the arguments. And they started asking whether this was one bad play, or part of something bigger. But there's an important line we shouldn't cross. A repeated history of controversial plays can explain why people are suspicious. It does not, by itself, prove that every new foul was intentional.
This is the same player that poked Caitlin Clark in the eye with her long-ass fingernails last year. Take a look.
This clip is going viral of Caitlin Clark getting poked in the eye by DiJonai Carrington. It happened in the first quarter when Clark tried passing the ball to her teammate Aaliyah Boston, but Carrington poked Clark in the eye while trying to deflect the pass. No foul was called, but Clark had to take a second to regain her composure. In the third quarter, DiJonai was defending Caitlin again when Caitlin hit DiJonai in the head, knocking out one of her contacts. No foul was called, but DiJonai had to take a second to put her contact back in.
Wind up and just getting her out of the way.
Criteria for flagrant foul.
I'll be stunned if this not upgraded to a flagrant 2.
The defensive foul on DiJonai Carrington has been upgraded to a flagrant foul, penalty 2. Since there's wind up, impact, and follow through, high potential for injury, players in a vulnerable position. Since the basket was successful, Sophie Cunningham will receive 2 free throws to make 1.
There's wind up, there's follow through, there's potential for injury, the player's in a vulnerable position. And so DiJonai Carrington, who had been off to an incredible start.
Now the Caitlin Clark connection becomes impossible to ignore. Clark and Cunningham are both Indiana Fever players, and both have become central figures in the league's enormous media attention. So every physical controversy involving the Fever now carries additional weight. People aren't simply asking what happened in this game. They're asking whether the league has learned anything from the previous incidents. And that's exactly why this story moved so quickly from a basketball discussion into a much larger cultural argument. Before we go deeper, if you want these stories broken down without skipping the controversial details, make sure you subscribe. Because what happened after the ejection is where this story completely changed direction.
Now, apparently, she went to the locker room, and instead of reflecting on what she just did, right, she went to social media to scream white privilege, right? White privilege because she got ejected from the game for smacking Sophie Cunningham across the face.
I will always support and back my fellow black queens. But DiJonai, you smacked the shit out that lady. White privilege has nothing to do with it. DiJonai Carrington was ejected from the Chicago Sky versus the Indiana Fever game after a very hard foul on Sophie Cunningham. After she was ejected, she then took to threads and posted white privilege at Indiana Fever. As you can see from this little tweet, that is DiJonai Carrington behind Sophie Cunningham trying to block her shot.
I'm
gonna show you what it looked like with the foul.
So much to me. Sophie Cunningham clocked over the head by DiJonai Carrington. WNBA player DiJonai Carrington blames, quote, white privilege after being ejected for a hard foul on Sophie Cunningham. Carrington was given a flagrant 2 foul and was immediately ejected. She then rushed back to the locker room so she could blame white privilege. This was the play.
Face coming down, trying to prevent the layup, but that is just...
clearly not going for the ball. 2 hands going for Sophie Cunningham's head. Sophie Cunningham gets up, not too excited about it. Gets up bleeding with blood in her mouth.
Most egregious play we've
Then
seen.
Stephanie-
This is the most obvious flagrant 2 foul we've seen. DiJonai, you got away with yanking a player down by her ponytail last year without getting tossed. You got away with that. And it was a white player. Like, if that is the logic, that is the systemic thing in the league, what the fuck are we talking about? Caitlin Clark got teed up for tripping. She got teed up for tripping. She tried to catch her balance near a referee. And she got teed up. The referee, Caitlin Clark, has been teed up for miscontrolling a ball, trying to flick it up into her hands with her feet. She's been teed up for pointing at a scoreboard. And she's been teed up for clapping. We're just standing there clapping. Yes, she was shit stirring. She's been teed up for standing there clapping. What are we doing? Like, Caitlin has a blooper reel of funny texts. Like, multiple of Caitlin's texts are gonna.
And this is where the story splits into 2 completely different interpretations. One side hears Stephanie White saying something very simple. The foul was hard, the officials made the correct call, but she doesn't believe Carrington intentionally targeted Cunningham's neck. The other side hears something completely different. They hear a coach protecting an opponent instead of standing up for her own player. That's why White became such a major part of the controversy. But again, there's a difference between criticizing her comments and proving that she had some hidden motive. The footage gives us her words. What those words mean beyond that is where interpretation begins.
This is not a one-off. Carrington has a paper trail. The eye poke on Caitlin Clark in 2024. Hair pulling on Sarah Ashley Barker. A flagrant on Skylar Diggins. Her own words when fans called her dirty. DiJonai Carrington just plays hard, never gives up on a play, and the last couple of flagrants got rescinded on challenge. That is not a competition. That's not a competitor. That is a pattern with a press strategy.
And this is exactly why Jason Whitlock's earlier criticism suddenly became relevant. Before Cunningham was hit, there were already people warning that Carrington's aggressive style could eventually produce a more serious incident. After Cunningham went down, those old arguments were pulled back into the spotlight. But there's a trap here. A prediction becoming relevant after an incident doesn't automatically make every part of that prediction true. It simply explains why people were ready to connect the dots.
This weekend with DiJonai Carrington and Sophie Cunningham, so Sophie's going for a layup. DiJonai hard fouls her, clocks her across the head, almost like because of the force of these two kind of undercuts Sophie in a way. She falls really hard. It's called a flagrant 2, and DiJonai is ejected. That's the right call. That's what should have happened. I'm glad that that happened. Even last year, honestly, even if this was last year, I'm not sure if we would have gotten that flagrant 2 called. Because even if you remember last year, like in the infamous Connecticut Sun game, where all of this stuff happened and then it ended with JC and Sophie on the other end, and there was a huge brawl or whatever. Even in that game, the thing that basically started it all was the thing with JC, and then with Marina Mabry coming out of nowhere and just clocking Caitlin to the ground. And if you guys remember, that wasn't called a flagrant 2. Like, there have been so many incidences in the past couple years where fouls like this weren't called flagrant 2s, and people continued to stay in the game, and that's when things escalated, and that's when things kind of got out of control.
And this may be the most important distinction in the entire story. You can believe the flagrant 2 was absolutely the correct call without claiming you know exactly what was happening inside Carrington's head. The officials judged the contact. The replay shows the contact. Cunningham was in a vulnerable position. The foul was excessive enough to result in an ejection. Those are observable facts. Intent is different. And once the argument moves from, was this a flagrant 2? To, was this deliberately motivated by Cunningham's identity or beliefs, the evidence becomes much less certain.
Always agree with officiating in the W. The other side of it, DiJonai Carrington's post that she put out on Threads. We saw this a little bit with Sophie Cunningham when she made those comments against transgender women participating in women's sports, or transgender girls participating in girls' sports. And then all of a sudden she came out and said, well, why is everybody talking about, stuff off the court? Why is everyone politicizing our league? Well, you kind of did it. You can't make a political statement and then get upset about people reacting to your political statement. So the same thing about DiJonai Carrington. The more and more we bring up the WNBA, the players themselves inside of the league, because whatever the media rhetoric is the media rhetoric. But when you're inside the league and you are a player in this league, a very famous player in this league, whether you're DiJonai Carrington or Sophie Cunningham or anybody else with a large platform in the WNBA, the more and more you make things about things that are other than basketball, makes people feel like they have the right to talk about the league in a way that's different than basketball. Politically, racially, sexually, whatever it might be. So the more that the players do it, only adds more fuel to the politically fueled fire.
The post changed the conversation because it gave everyone something new to argue about. Without it, the story could have remained relatively simple. Hard foul. Flagrant 2. Ejection. Game continues. Instead, 2 words became the headline. And once those words entered the story, Cunningham's public views became part of the discussion too. Now people weren't debating only basketball. They were debating whether race had anything to do with the incident, whether Cunningham's public opinions had made her a target, and whether Carrington's post was an emotional reaction or something more deliberate. Those are questions the footage alone cannot answer.
Exhausted by the constant conversation, and the conversations from everybody, the whataboutism from everybody, but you didn't yell about this, and where were you on this issue? It's the fans, it's the media, it's the players, it's the coaches, it's the front, it's everybody at this point.
And now we reach the bigger issue. Why does every major fever controversy seem to become bigger than the game itself? Part of the answer is Caitlin Clark. Part of it is Sophie Cunningham's outspoken public image. Part of it is Carrington's previous controversies. And part of it is simply the environment surrounding the WNBA right now. Every clip gets posted. Every reaction gets analyzed. Every social media statement becomes another storyline. And once politics, race, and celebrity enter the conversation, the original basketball play can almost disappear underneath everything else.
With either one of them. And so we just liked what it was going to give us from a number standpoint, a combination standpoint, and a substitution pattern standpoint.
Yeah, which one's another 25 and 10. I think that's 6 this season. The rest of the league has like 3 combined.
This is also why the official explanation matters. The league didn't say Cunningham's reaction deserved the same punishment. It specifically explained that her response was considered acceptable given the severity of the contact. And the Clark technical was later rescinded after review. So there is more nuance here than the viral clips suggest. The league made calls. Then it reviewed some of those calls. And now the controversy is being judged through every previous controversy that came before it.
She a natural bucket.
And one.
She moved without the ball, what we was talking about on 520 films.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, good pass, travel, but we'll take it.
And this was exactly how people interpreted the previous game. Cunningham knows exactly how people interpreted the foul. The Fever know the attention isn't going away. And every physical play in the next matchup will be watched through this lens. That's the danger. Once a rivalry becomes a narrative, even an ordinary basketball play can become evidence for whatever side someone already believes.
And right now, based on us not knowing anything about the Indiana Fever, I don't know. But the WNBA has to investigate the Indiana Fever. And if nothing is if nothing was done in the Indiana Fever,
in the end, Sophie Cunningham's fall lasted only seconds. But the controversy that followed became much bigger. Carrington was ejected. The foul was ruled a flagrant 2. The white privilege post changed the conversation. Caitlin Clark's history with Carrington resurfaced. Stephanie White's comments became another controversy. Jason Whitlock's previous criticism was brought back into the spotlight. And LeBron James became part of the online conversation because of his documented support for Clark, even though there is no verified direct statement from him about this specific foul in the material we have. And that's the line this story ultimately comes down to. What do we know? We know Cunningham was hit. We know the officials ruled it a flagrant 2. We know Carrington was ejected. We know she posted white privilege. And we know the incident immediately became much bigger than basketball. What we don't know is intent. And we don't know whether LeBron James actually reacted to this specific incident. That's where the facts stop. And the debate begins. So now I want your take. Was this simply an overly aggressive basketball play that deserved a flagrant 2? Or did everything that happened afterward expose a much deeper problem inside the WNBA? Drop your opinion in the comments. And if you want the next chapter when this story develops, make sure you're subscribed.